step up to being the Tottenham manager? Because it is a step up, isn't it? I mean, although you look at the table and Brentford are 7th and Tottenham are in the bottom half of the table, there's more scrutiny.
Yep.
There's a lot more noise around the place because it's a bigger football club. So how do you think he's going to handle that?
I think he's got all the tools to handle it well. I think he has handled it well. Obviously, the results haven't gone so well at the minute, but I think he, looking at the game on Sunday against City, the players are still working really hard for him. Second half, especially, you could see they're still running for him. You kind of look at that as signs of, they're still with him at the minute. Obviously, like you say, the club is a lot bigger than Brentford at this moment in time, and there's a lot more scrutiny on him, and he will be, tested with all those things. But he's a fantastic manager. I've got a lot of time for him. Really enjoyed my time with him, and I fully expected him to do well moving forward and stepping on. I think, like I say, results haven't gone to plan at the minute, but I think he, given.
Ever fancied having a beer in the stands while watching your team at the Emirates? Well, this season you actually can, and not just there. You can do it at Anfield, Goodison Park, Stamford Bridge and Old Trafford too. But hold on, I hear you cry. Isn't drinking alcohol in the stands at Premier League games illegal? You're right, for the men's game it still is, but the Women's Super League is doing something different, and here's how we got there. Back in the 1980s, football had a serious image problem. The sport was plagued by violence, pitch invasions and beer-fuelled chaos. From fan riots at the 1980 Scottish Cup final to the Heysel disaster years later, things were unsafe and the consequences were disastrous. Then in 1985, Margaret Thatcher's government stepped in. They introduced the Sporting Events Control of Alcohol Act, banning alcohol in view of the pitch across England and Wales. Since then, many fans and clubs have called for the law to be relaxed, especially since other sports don't face the same restrictions. If you're popping down to watch the Red Roses roar at Twickenham, feel free to grab a pint on the way to your seat. Wandering down to Lord's to catch some boundary bashing? Fill your boots with G&Ts. But if you were hoping to cheers your club's promotion to the Premier League with a Prosecco in hand from pitchside, sorry, it'll have to be tea or Bovril. In 2021, it looked like things might finally change. The government commissioned the Crouch Report, a fan-led review into football governance. One recommendation was to allow League Two and National League clubs to lift the alcohol ban to boost matchday revenue. But nothing came of it. Authorities still weren't convinced that fans could be trusted. And then in January 2025, something did change. The Women's Championship, now called the WSL2, launched a trial allowing fans to drink in the stands. The reasoning? Well, fans at women's matches tend to behave differently. Less aggression, more family-friendly vibes. Now, the women's game is raising the bar, literally. Select WSL and WSL2 stadiums are allowing fans to drink alcohol in view of the pitch. It's been a landmark move, showing growing trust in fans and recognising that women's football is building its own culture. So could the men's game be the next to leave the 1980s behind? Well, maybe, if fans can prove they can handle a pint without pitching it at someone. Yeah, don't hold your breath. Until then, it's Bovril all around. Cheers to that.
Yeah, good evening one, good evening all, and welcome to a special edition of Trans Europe Express here on a Sunday night on talkSPORT. I say special for two reasons. First of all, let me tell you, I'm Danny Kelly, taking a well-earned break from watching snowboarding, and people are throwing themselves downhill on what appear to be kitchen trays for 12 hours a day. But with two reasons why this is a special edition. It's very short because of talkSPORT's coverage of the Super Bowl from Santa Clara, the New England Patriots against the Seahawks. We'll be finishing at about 5 minutes to 11, so we can get the full build-up, Green Day's concert, and then full commentary of the big game. It's also a special one because it marks the return after a month dealing with all kinds of things that needed dealing with in his life. I'm delighted to say that the star of the show, the man without whom there is no gig, Andy Brassell, is back with us. Hello, Andy.
Hello, thanks for having me back.
It's a joy to have you back, my friend. Brilliantly, though, Daniele and Kevin did. It's a joy to have you back at the controls as we look at everything that's going on around the world of football. We'll also be having Mbappe Watch. Tim Vickery will join us from South America. Ben Jacobs will join us to talk about Cristiano Ronaldo going on strike despite earning millions of pounds a week. He must have some very big issue. We'll find out what it was. And some huge money transfers into Saudi Arabia after the European transfer window had closed that may have escaped your attention. There's also a poll tonight. Where will the aforementioned Cristiano Ronaldo be playing after the World Cup? Al Nassr, where he's currently employed, another Saudi Pro League club, Sporting Lisbon, or the MLS. Go to talksport.com. talkSPORT on X. talkSPORT on X, or Danny Kelly Words on X, or Andy Brassell, 2 S's and 2 L's on X to vote in that. It's a packed show with very little time to do it. Tighten your seatbelts. Let's go. Where you're welcome to Trans Europe Express on talkSPORT, where now it's time for this.
Carrière le Paris Saint-Germain, Mbappé! Mbappé! Little give and go, Mbappe's in! Oh, it's 2-2! He scored twice in 2 minutes! Tête de qui Mbappé? Allez, Kylian!
Andy, before we get into this, Real Madrid themselves, which is the section, this is the section show where we look at them and their star players and their mad carry-on, and two other leagues as well. Big games going on tonight. Why don't you give us the latest from Italy, France and Spain?
Yeah, as you say, Danny, the subject of this show is currently in action. Currently, Real Madrid drawing 0-0 away at Valencia, which there's plenty of time to go, but that would not be a great result, it's fair to say, with Barcelona winning yesterday. They started the weekend just 1 point behind at the top of La Liga, and they want to keep it there. Mbappe did have a good chance in the first half, saved by the goalkeeper. Bit of a shock brewing in Italy. Juventus 0, Lazio 2. Goals either side of half-time from Pedro and Gustav Isaacson, giving the Romans a 2-goal advantage. Juventus played really well in that first half and had some good chances, had a goal disallowed by Tejan Koopmeiners, but caught on the break at the start of the end of the first half, and it's got worse for them. Not a shock so far in Paris. PSG 2, Marseille 0 in Le Classique. 2 goals. Second one, a brilliant one by Ousmane Dembélé. He is having a night, is the Ballon d'Or. Our man Lee Davey is there. In a longer show, I imagine we would get him on the line to give us the full Ultras experience. Himed Abdelli, who was a Marseille fan as a kid, has kind of semi-lived his dream. He's just come on as substitute, having joined them towards the end of the transfer deadline. He had a little piece of paper on it, which presumably was some sort of tactical instruction from Roberto De Zerbi, or might just have said, oh my God, they brought Kvaratskhelia on.
Thank you very, very much indeed, Andy, for that. Which takes us back to Mbappe Watch and Real Madrid. And now I think one of the funniest stories I've ever had to cover here on Trans Europe Express in a decade of this award-winning show. Here we go. Barcelona have withdrawn from the Super League. You remember the Super League about 5 years ago? We're all going to be in it, including Spurs. And so gradually everyone said no, the fans weren't having it, the broadcasters weren't having it, everything else fell to pieces. But doggedly, the two people who organised, or have mostly organised it, Barcelona and Real Madrid, kept going with Project Super League. Well, this week, Barcelona have withdrawn, Andy, leaving Real Madrid the only team in the Super League, which they've achieved now. Their ambition, they now completely dominate the Super League.
Yeah, you do dream, I guess, to say we're in a league of our own. Maybe this is not the way that they fully intended it. Now, I guess in one way, it doesn't really make a huge difference to Real Madrid, does it? Because, of course, Juventus pulled out before it was last repackaged and resent, which was at the end of 2024, after it originally came out a few years before that, of course, as quite a half-baked thing when we were on air, when the story came
amazing.
out, or when it was snuck out on a Sunday night, the advantage of being positioned where we are on the radio. And but it was never really about the competition. And we always knew that all along. Now, they said about, it's about giving ourselves the opportunity to catch up with the Premier League. The Premier League has forced us to do this. I never really quite saw how that works because, of course, if it was about catching up with the Premier League, the extra money that you're going to make, well, the Premier League clubs would be making that money as well because FOMO, they would be in it as well, and it wouldn't be a Super League without them. So really, this has always been about the ability, the right to really put on your own competitions. So not have UEFA do it for you, but put on your own competitions so you can own the product, so you can own the IP. That's what it's always been about. And in that sense, there's been no practical way of the Super League going for a good few years now. It started to die 5 years ago, this idea, really. But it's not really about that. It's not really about the format. It's not about the competition. It's about the right to run things, which if you go back to the formation of the European Cup in the first place in the 50s, Real Madrid have always strived to do.
Yeah, I mean, Andy, we talked about, not this, of course, but a parallel subject last week in your regrettable absence. And I was, we were saying that no matter what the boffins in Madrid, Barcelona or UEFA come up with at the moment, and of course the English clubs and the Premier League has no divine right to any of the things that give them an advantage. This could all change, but everything they try keeps backfiring. It's like watching a comedy film or that bit in The Simpsons where Sideshow Bob keeps walking and he's in a garden full of rakes, and no matter what direction he walks in, a rake hits him in the face. They decide to extend the league, bring in more teams. Now they're facing the prospect, given Newcastle's reasonably fortunate draw against Qarabağ, of 6 English teams in the last 16. They can say, we'll put in an extra Champions League place. Somebody can give other countries a chance to have extra team in the Champions League. It just goes to England every year. It's very, very odd now. But it also feeds into my... Andy, I'm just not brainy enough to work out what's going on, but I keep catching straws in the wind. And this is another one. Barcelona, all the big clubs are behaving in a way that leads me to believe that somewhere down the line, and not a million miles away, will be some other new arrangement about
something
financing
else is coming.
European football clubs, whether it is different kinds of television deals, whether it is abandoning traditional television in favour of streaming all the games via all the clubs at their own behest, or whether it's Saudi Arabian money being used to reconfigure the European football market like they've done with live golf, tennis and all the rest of it. Something is happening here for Barcelona to give up the ghost.
Yeah, and I don't think it's just selling the corporate boxes for the next 30, 40 years.
No.
There's got to be something else. And I think in terms of owning the property, as we were talking about before, and that property being television rights, I think that works for the very biggest clubs. But ultimately, the way that football has gone, that's going to create an even bigger gulf between the biggest and the smallest. There's no doubt about that. So if we were talking about the Netflixification of league football, for example, something that's happened really out of necessity rather than necessarily innovation in France, as we've talked about.
Sure.
There's a couple of clubs who can bear losing the TV money up front, but there's not many of them. And it's something that eventually doesn't level the playing field, does it? It's something that makes it very difficult. Talking about unlevel playing fields, perfect segue there. And in the time that we've been rattling on about this, Danny, maybe we've been rattling on about it for hours, because it's gone from PSG 2, Marseille 0, to PSG 4, Marseille 0 in the last couple of minutes. That's not even 70 minutes in at the Parc des Princes. Third goal, own goal by Facundo Medina. It was flicked over the advancing goalkeeper by João Neves, and it just flicked off the top of Medina's head, ended up in the back of the net. And Kvisha Kvaratskhelia, we talked about him coming on. That piece of paper didn't do any good. He has just smashed an incredible volley into the far corner. PSG 4, Marseille 0. They're going back on top of the league.
Very quickly then on Real Madrid to finish, Andy. We know that Jude Bellingham is out for a month now. Last week I told you he'd had that hamstring injury. It's not a serious one, but it's a month. So he'll miss both legs of that hopefully fantastically fun qualifying for the round of 16 Champions League tie against Benfica. A quick word, Andy, on how Alvaro Arbeloa, very much seen as a Real Madrid man, is doing. But given the reaction of the fans in Madrid to his appointment, I suspect they're glad to be playing in Valencia today.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's the booing has not been about him.
No.
It's been about the players, and really it's an impossible situation for him to come into. Now, of course, Zinedine Zidane came into a very unpromising situation when he took the same route from Castilla, the B team, to be in the safe pair of hands to take on the first team. But you know what? It was different for him because he had players that have got muscle memory of winning, which I'm not sure you can say about this lot at the top level. Basically, Arbeloa could go and win the league, and, you know, they're only a point behind at the start of this weekend. But winning the league would not get him the gig permanently if they go out in, say, the last 16 of the Champions League, or, Lord forbid, even earlier.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed for that. Next up, we'll be doing Germany and Bayern Munich. They've stumbled recently, but today they refound their feet. That will come next here on Trans Europe Express.
It's just disrespectful. And how about you look at your own performances? I rate Romero. I do rate him as a defender. 5 goals this season as well. He's chipping in with his goals from centre half. But you haven't had the best of seasons. You cost your side on numerous occasions with poor defending. Just shut up and play football. Leave that to the manager to speak to the board about signings. It's none of your business. Fans will like it.
Captain.
Yeah, fans will like it. Okay, would you see an Arsenal captain come out and speak like that?
But Arsenal not in the same situation.
One of the things Thomas Frank said in that clip we just played is that Romero is ambitious. Can't have been that ambitious.
Well, he's won the World Cup.
He signed a new contract with Tottenham. If you're that ambitious, you don't do that. You back yourself to go and play for a big club. He was part of the team that finished 17th in the Premier League last year. He was described by our own Stuart Pearce as a liability in the previous meeting with Manchester United. He isn't that good a defender. I don't think he's that good a character. And I think he should have been stripped of the captaincy. This is not how a captain of a Premier League football club should be behaving.
Well, he's a Europa League winner and a World Cup
They beat
final
the dog and
winner.
duck in the final.
Well, they didn't bring the dog and duck in the World Cup final, did they? They beat France. But
Well, Sam,
Jimmy Traore won the Champions League. Doesn't make him a legend of football, does it?
not saying he's a legend. He's just saying that he's not a bad footballer. You think he's overrated, and I think he's
So
got.
does
some
Stuart Pearce. I'll
I
take
think he's
Stuart
got-
Pearce's view over mine.
I think he's got great qualities. I think he's just a little bit sometimes too eager, and sometimes his ego gets the better of him, and he wants to go and do everything
Well, there's the-
instead of being disciplined.
There's the point that you've made. He's rash on the pitch. He gets too many bookings. He gets too many red cards. He gets caught out of position too often. And he's clearly overly emotional off the pitch. And you use the word ego there. Speaking of people who know what goes on in that Tottenham dressing room, there are too many egos. There are too many players there who feel they should be playing for far bigger clubs than Tottenham. And I think therein lies the
Tottenham
problem.
are a big club.
But when you're winless in 6...
Yeah, the wonders of live radio. Yes, that don't adjust your set. That is me pouring out some water for myself. Welcome back to Trans-Europe Express. I was going to start by going straight to Germany, Andy, but I think we need to return to France because Paris Saint-Germain are making a mess of Marseille.
So it's 5-0 now to PSG. The full man-eater, Roberto De Zerbi, looking a little bit sheepish on the touchline. Kang In Lee cutting from the right-hand side, smashed in a shot past Jeffrey Delanger, the goalkeeper who's been brought in this evening. 5-0 with 15 minutes still to go. And they've just brought on Dro Fernandez, who they recently signed from Barcelona for a debut.
Yeah, fantastic. Let's go back to Germany then. The headline is, let's call the whole thing Hoff. Big game in Germany this today. Hoffenheim, who are third, having an amazing season, went to Bayern Munich, who have stumbled recently, got 1 point from the last 6 available to them in the Bundesliga. But from very early on, Hoffenheim were making it difficult for themselves, though they played all right, and in the end, a straightforward win for Bayern Munich.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a game that we were all looking forward to as, you know, a genuine challenge for Bayern after what had happened to them recently. And they started okay. And then they give away a penalty. And not only give away a penalty, but Kevin Akpoguma is sent off for fouling Luis Diaz. And Christian Ilzer, the coach, is sort of standing there on the touchline going, you could have just let him score, rather than leaving us with 10 men for, 73 minutes at the Allianz Arena. And after Harry Kane puts away the penalty and they're down to 10 men, you think, OK, it's only going one way. And then Manuel Neuer hands Hoffenheim a goal, really. Terrible bit of play by him, leading to Andre Kramaric, their top scorer of all time, of course, and relentless goal scorer, levelling it up. 45th minute, they're 1-1, and you think, OK, it's looking good. And then Bayern get a very fortuitous second penalty. It looks like Luis Diaz originally fouls Vladimir Coufal before then falling over and fouling him. Nevertheless, VAR has nothing to say about it. Kane penalty, you know the result. And 30 seconds later, Luis Diaz scores another one set up by Kane. And from then on, it's a procession, really. So in the end, 2 for Kane, 3 for Luis Diaz, who, because Kane is so brilliant, and I won't stop talking about Michael Elise, I think Luis Diaz doesn't really get enough bandwidth on this show sometimes. 13 league goals for the season now, and he has added a whole nother dimension to Bayern. Now, of course, we know Jamal Musiala is coming back from injury, and he's made a one start since he's come back and a few interesting little cameos. Because of the way Bayern have progressed, I think there's a question whether Jamal Musiala is actually in the best 11 that Bayern have at the moment. It's a really good question. Of course, in the week, we had Serge Gnabry signing again for another couple of years. He was going to be out of contract at the end of the season, but he's on until 2028 now. So, you know, the depth that they have, despite, as we said, Kane at the start of the season telling us that, well, we've actually got a really small squad, even compared to any of the Tottenham squads I've played in. Maybe in some areas, but in the forward areas.
He was joking, Andy. That quote, I presume he was having a laugh. The interesting thing to me is, as you say, Diaz, Elise, Kane, how they have used the Premier League in the last 2 years to widen the gap between themselves and the other teams in Germany, while also giving themselves a very decent chance to win the Champions League.
Yeah, they have. Do you know what, Danny? It's because the transfer market has changed. Because some of the players that they've really wanted, notably Florian Wirtz and Nick Woltemade, they found the Premier League has too much money for them to be able to get them. And they've been left very nonplussed and a little bit emasculated by that. But, of course, the knock-on of that is when Luis Diaz gets to a certain age and Liverpool decide they don't want to pay him 200 grand a week on his new contract. Hello, we're here for you. And that has worked out absolutely perfectly. He got a nice raise that he wouldn't have got at Anfield, and he's gone on to be really, really good for them. Michael Elise making the leap, of course, from Crystal Palace as well. The fact that Harry Kane's contract meant that he kind of missed a boat with Manchester City. So they've been able to sort of comfort themselves, as you say, with top-level players from the Premier League who make a huge difference to them now. But they've not got the players who they want to be their key players for the next 10 years. Elise apart, of course.
Andrew and Andy, let me just tell you, Real Madrid have taken the lead in Valencia.
That's right. Alvaro Carreras with the goal.
Yeah.
Coming in from left back. Lovely little finish into the near post. Not Mbappe getting it done, but Alvaro Carreras, who has been, I think, one of their stars of what sometimes has been a very difficult season. But if they go on and win at Valencia, that means it's still a 1-point gap at the top.
Yeah, before that thrashing of Hoffenheim, Dortmund were only 3 points behind Bayern Munich. They won at Wolfsburg. In the way of Dortmund just now, nothing they do is super impressive, but they keep on piling up points, all heading to the Klassiker against Bayern at the end of the month. Now, that should be a very exciting thing, but as I said to you in the meeting, Andy, before we did the programme, you've been promising me these Klassikers for 10 solid years here on Trans-Europe Express. I don't know if you did the same thing the year I had during COVID, where I had to do the Sunday afternoon show with Simon Jordan and Andy Goldstein did the show. I don't know if you were still making out there was going to be a big Klassiker coming down the pipeline, because all my recollection is we have a massive build-up and then Bayern smacked Dortmund around the head.
Well, to answer your question, yes, I was, Danny, and no, Goldstein doesn't speak to me anymore for that reason. I think because I disappointed him so much. But I'm not going to feed you that this time, because it's interesting. Nico Schlotterbeck came out last week after they beat Heidenheim, again very unimpressively, because Wolfsburg right down by the bottom, and they played really well yesterday. They deserved at least a point, if not more, against Dortmund, and didn't get it because of the late goal by Seydou Guirassy, who's started scoring again. But Nico Schlotterbeck, the captain, came out and said last week that, yeah, we're all in for the title. We're going for it. Now, I love confidence and I love ambition. But really, after you've just crawled past Hoffenheim, and they gave an equally unimpressive performance yesterday, as you said. So whereas the numbers tell us that there's a title race, the eye test suggests that there probably isn't.
Well, at the other end of the fortune scale, shall we call it that, I've written down here Werder Bremen crisis, and I spelled crisis with a K at the start because it's German. But that tiny gag shouldn't detract from the fact that it's a real crisis, whatever language you say it in.
No, it shouldn't, Danny. And look, they haven't won for 11 games now after going 1-0 down at Freiburg yesterday. That's despite the fact they played most of the second half against 10 men. Rarely looked like scoring. They had a few chances late on, but Freiburg really were in control of most of the game. And considering Werder went out last summer and they spent what by their relatively modest standards these days was quite a lot of money, none of the signings have really worked out. Not Samuel Bangula, not Cameron Puertas, who hasn't provided a single goal or assist so far, despite being a key player for Union Saint-Gilloise before he went off to the Middle East. And the big thing really has been Ole Werner, the coach who went off to RB Leipzig in the summer, and he was papering over a lot of cracks, it turns out. Horst Stefan came in and didn't do a great job. He was fired on Monday, replaced by Daniel Thun, who was last got rid of by Fortuna Düsseldorf for having them closer to the third tier than the top tier. And he came in yesterday and it looked as if it was still a Horst Stefan team. And he was asked in the press conference afterwards, we didn't really make many changes from this team that had not won from 10 games. What was the thinking behind that? And he's like, well, I didn't want the players to be confused. I don't really understand that. It's very, very hard to find justification for that. But they need to fix something very, very quickly, or they're going down. They're hovering right above the bottom three at the moment.
Another really big club heading for Bundesliga 2.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's do our stars of the week in Germany, Andy. I'm going for a familiar name from perhaps half a dozen years ago, Nadim Amiri. Mainz are not a great team, but he, a very fun to watch German midfielder, is having a real revival in his career. In fact, he's been recalled to the German squad recently for the first time in 6 years. He got 2 penalties as Mainz beat Augsburg yesterday. Now, that is important because Mainz have now won 4 out of 5, and having been bottom not so very, very long ago, are now 5th from bottom. So they're really tearing away from that relegation fight, a lot of it on the back of Nadim Amiri's skills. Who have you got for star of the week, Andy?
Well, I've gone for Maniolis Saliakas, the Greek right back for St. Pauli. That's right, St. Pauli, they've been in trouble a lot this season. They've had some terrible luck with injuries recently. Ricky J. Jones, who of course came across from Peterborough and has scored a couple of important goals. He ruptured his ankle ligaments in the week in the DFB Pokal exit to Leverkusen, so he's out for the rest of the season, and get well soon, by the way. But Saliakis scored a great goal from distance to lead St. Pauli to an improbable win over a very, very good Stuttgart team. They're back in it. They're only 2 points behind Werder Bremen now, going back to what we were talking about previously.
Listen, thank you very much indeed. Next, we'll turn to Italy, where maybe for the first time in the whole season, Inter Milan are starting to do what they should be doing with that squad of players. We'll talk about that next year on Trans-Europe Express.
You don't mean that, man.
Okay, stop
man,
shouting,
let me get the out of here, bro. I'm out of here. I'm out of here. Talking about my peoples and all that. It's hard to believe a black man and a white man. The cheated. Tell him to sue me so I can show the facts early. Because when the documentary and everything, the story come out, I'm going to show everything.
Fantastic.
I'm going to get all the people that know and all the people that's in the inside. He got people that the inside of him. They're going to know. I don't, what? I don't about that.
I'm not a Fury
I don't about it. I said we didn't want to bring him up in the first place. It ain't got to do with him.
Fair enough.
The you talking about?
And with that, he was out of there. How on earth do you reflect on that? What was he going on about?
Well, look, I mean, at the time, I was a little bit embarrassed because I thought the show's coming off the rails and it was a big show and Deontay Wilder's a big name, so I'm sitting there thinking I'm a bit embarrassed by it. Then I thought, he's a bit of a tit. And then I thought, is he on drugs or something, or is this theatrics? And then I just came around to the conclusion that he's not right. He's not well. And all this ayahuasca stuff it's probably worked in reverse. I thought it was supposed to make you calm and zen-like. Listen, I didn't provoke Deontay Wilder by asking him a question that he didn't want to answer. I asked him a question about something he'd said, not something I was trying to engineer into clickbait. He called Tyson Fury a cheat. He's sitting in England. Tyson Fury, in some people's minds, is a legend in boxing. And so you're sitting in England. I thought, not unreasonable. Someone else asked him the question, and he didn't like it. And he can't answer it. So he gets all agitated and upset about it. He turns it into a debate about oppression. I mean, there's loads more that you didn't see. You know, he threatened to punch me in the face and talked about lynching and God knows whatever else. And I understand that he's got things in his life that have challenged him. But later on in the afternoon, you saw him. He went off to do some other stuff, and he was much more relaxed about it. But that looks to me like a man that's struggling with things, because there was no reason for that reaction. There was no provocation. There was no incitement. It wasn't a case of you were told not to ask that question, so don't ask it. No, I wasn't told not to ask that question. It was on the schedule by the producer. It was a reasonable question to ask, and so we asked it.
Yeah, Italy now here on Trans-Europe Express, and we've already heard that Paris Saint-Germain are 5 up against Marseille in the big game in France tonight, that Bayern got 5 against third-placed Hoffenheim in Germany today. So if I tell you that our Italian coverage is called 5-Star Inter, you'll guess how many goals the league leaders got away at Sassuolo. And they did indeed get 5. And finally, it is obvious to the naked eye that this is the best squad of players in the Italian league. But let's be honest, they have taken their time, not to say made a massive pasta meal of making their superiority felt in the Scudetto.
Yeah, they have for a long time, and we've said it like week after week after week for a couple of years, actually, haven't we, Danny? You know, this is the best squad in Serie A. I think what's clearer is this year they made an effort in the summer to get a bit younger and a bit deeper, because what was depth on paper proved to be not that in the closing weeks of last season, when they were beaten in the semi-final of the Coppa Italia, when they had the league taken away from them by Napoli, which, incredible achievement by Napoli. But, I think we have seen in a few different places that not the best team always wins the league. That's not always the case.
That's the joy of football, of course.
But of course. But this season, it feels like they've started flexing their muscles. So 8 points clear after that 5-0 at Sassuolo. And what's interesting is Federico Di Marco is one of the best wing-backs in world football, and is having a great season.
He may even get to the World Cup, Andy.
Oh, he will. There's no doubt about it. I mean, he cleared one off the line in the first minute from Ismail Kone to stop Sassuolo taking the lead. And then he promptly set up the first 2. Ended up with 3 assists. He's got 11 assists from the season. And funnily enough, one of the things that really held them back at the back end of last season is the fact that him and Dumfries weren't fit a lot of the time. And that was a massive problem for them, because they didn't really have that creativity in the middle of the pitch. Hakan Çalhanoğlu's coming from a little bit deeper. So they relied so much on those wing backs. And when they weren't either fit or in form, they had a bit of a problem. But
my point wasn't about Dimarco's ability to play for Italy. The fact that Italy haven't yet qualified for the World Cup.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Look, and if Dimarco was the star of the game, I think I just can't understand how he is so underrated. And that's Lautaro Martinez, their striker, because he is going to break lots and lots of important records. He's closing in on some more now for Inter Milan. He's just a fantastic footballer.
Yeah, well, you'll want to underline who he's matched for third top scorer of all time.
Yeah, I mean,
for Inter by scoring today.
We're having to reach back into the depths of history now to talk about the things that he's doing. He's just equalled, with a goal in this game, he's just equalled the record for Inter of Roberto Boninsegna. Now, you've got to be my age to remember Roberto. Indeed, he was in that fantastic Italian team in the 1970 World Cup that eventually ran out of steam and got beaten by Pele's Brazil in the final. But he was their centre-forward there. I mean, the names ahead of him, one of them, the stadium is named after him, Giuseppe Meazza, and the other is Altobelli, who was the world record fee centre-forward a million years ago. So he really is up against the giants of Inter's history here, and is hunting them down. Amazing amount of goals.
Yeah, 171 Inter goals. Now, of course, what has made this as well is we talked about one of the people he overtook a while ago, Sandro Mazzola. And really, Mazzola, as you were pointing out to me, a midfielder, but a little bit like Marek Hamsik. He sort of succeeded in terms of the goal scoring record by his longevity, by the fact that he played 550, 600 odd games for Inter. And I just wonder, if we look at Lautaro, where he is now, if the tiredness doesn't get him, if the fatigue of playing every game in the entire football calendar doesn't get him, I think you could see him going past Altobelli, certainly, and maybe even Giuseppe Meazza in time.
Would they rename the stadium if he got past Meazza? That's the question. Andy, meanwhile, in a flurry of late goals in Italy, one of the teams that benefited from that were Napoli, who won 3-2 at Genoa. And, it's a penalty, but Rasmus Højlund continues to defy the Premier League critics.
Yeah, a penalty that absolutely crept in after he'd scored the opener, feeding off a shot that was saved by Scott McTominay. I mean, they went one down in double quick time, Napoli, and it looked like one of those days on the road. But then they found themselves 2-1 up after McTominay scored from absolutely miles out. Then McTominay went off, holding the back of his thigh, and you thought, OK, this injury crisis is getting out of control. And actually, there was footage of Conte turning around and saying to one of his assistants, I'm going to have to bring myself on in a minute, showing that he does have a sense of humour, actually. But it turns out it's not that bad, but they'll probably leave McTominay out of the Coppa Italia game in the week against Como just to be on the safe side. They cannot afford any more injuries, especially not one to their most important player. Now, look, Genoa got themselves level, and they've been really good under Daniele De Rossi. They lost to a 99th minute penalty at Lazio last week, and then the same thing happened again, or it's 90+4, I think it was, that Højlund scored. Really squirmed in the end, and it was a penalty won by their young star Antonio Vergara, and I do mean won. I mean, I think he was breathed on and he went over. Something that VAR, I don't think, should have really done anything with, but anyway, that's how it ended up. Højlund scored the penalty and had the humility afterwards to say, after it was nearly saved by Bilyov, maybe I will have to practice when I get back to training. But I think it was interesting as well to see De Rossi, who's done such a great job. He was absolutely fuming afterwards about the penalty, and you've got to go some not to be the angriest man on the touchline when you're opposite Antonio Conte.
Absolutely, you really are in the competition there, aren't you? And last week we said that Juve's results had put the nail in their coffin as regards winning the title in Italy. Are Lazio still hammering that nail very determinedly, Andy?
Yeah, it's deep into stoppage time. It's 2-1 now to Lazio. Weston McKennie pulled one back just before the hour. But as stands, it's still 2-1 to Lazio, which means if Roma to win against Cagliari tomorrow night in the capital, they would go back up to 4th.
And tell me, what is your star of the week in Italy?
My star of the week, we don't have many Zambian stars of the week, but we've got one this week. Lamek Banda scored a brilliant winner from range from a free kick for Lecce right at the end of their game, which takes them further away from the bottom. They're putting up a real fist of staying up.
Someone's just said in my headphones, Andy, late goal in Turin.
Oh, exciting. Yes, it's an equaliser for Pierre Kalulu. 2-2 in the 6th minute of stoppage time. Not what they were hoping for, but better than nothing.
Absolutely. And as you say, it's been a weekend of late drama in Italian football. That's why my star of the week is Edoardo Corvi, the goalkeeper of Parma. In a flurry of late goals, Parma got a late winner against Bologna, helping them move further away from the bottom. But after that late winner, Corvi had to make 2 outstanding saves just to keep the points intact. It was all going on very late on there. Who's your star of the week in Italy, Andy?
It's still Lamek Banda, but I think he deserves to be mentioned twice because it was that good.
Thank you very much indeed. We have to keep motoring. As I say, a truncated show tonight. We'll be finishing just before 11 o'clock to help you hear full build up to the Super Bowl live from Santa Clara, including Green Day, who are doing the pre-match concert. Of course, Bad Bunny's doing the halftime gig. Next up, we'll be turning Andy's particular attention to France, and we will mention Endrick and Leon in Andy's honour for the umpteenth time in the past month.
let's go to Joe, who's a Liverpool fan. All right, Joe.
All right, Joe boy.
You all right, lads? How are you?
All right,
All
mate.
right, Joey, how are you?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. I've gone for a left winger, and I've gone for this player because if it's not your night, he'll pick your pockets again and again and again, and it's the pub fruit machine.
Oh, the old fruit machine.
Mate, the back line, we've got a doorman, we've got carpet and a fruit machine. Mate, this is the stiffest.
He wants him as a left winger.
Oh, you said left wing? I thought you said left back.
Fruit machine left wing.
Oh, he's not getting past anyone.
What, the fruit machine?
I mean, modern day wingers, you know, they're quite tall, lanky. I mean, look at Cody Gakpo, for example.
Yeah, but I wouldn't describe Cody Gakpo as a fruit machine.
I mean, you pick your pocket. It's
You wouldn't, would you?
the slot machine.
Yeah, oh, the old slot. Oh, see, you might change. Yeah,
The fruit machine, though.
No, wait, listen, I'm having him. I'm not sure he's a left winger, mate.
Well, yeah.
It don't strike me. If I said to you, who are you playing that wide left? And I said the fruit machine, you go, who's he getting past?
Where are we thinking for the fruit machine? Because I like it. I feel like the fruit machine needs to be in there because he's a staple part of a pub.
You stick him in front of the back four.
You want to play him CDM? Why? Because
he's always picking pockets.
Pick your pocket.
Okay. There's a little bit of that going on.
So we got a fruit machine in the seat.
It's like Yaya Toure, and he. It's Yaya Toure because he's not a canter.
Casado? He's a bit of a Casado.
Oh, Yaya's like a big old unit, right?
Mascherano, the fruit machine, pick your pockets.
Whoever, mate, right? But he's not a left winger. The fruit machine's not left wing. I think here's what we need. Right. We need a little bit of. We need a little bit of movement.
We need a bit of.
So we've got right back the coaster.
We've got the coaster at right back.
He ain't going nowhere. We've got carpet and the doorman, and in front is a fruit machine.
Yeah, and the condom machine in goal.
Mate, I wouldn't mind taking it at the minute. If I saw that back, if I get a.
I take it, Andy, that the torture has ended for Marseille in Paris.
Yeah, it has. PSG 5, Marseille 0. We might not have heard the end of it as far as Roberto De Zerbi, who's had a very up and down first 5 weeks to 2026 goes. So we'll see what happens there, and we will inform you if anything dramatic happens before the end of the show, just before 11. Also, it's over in Turin. Juventus 2, Lazio 2. That header by Pierre Kalulu getting them a point. Almost got them a little bit more. Kalulu's cross headed wide by Lois Openda with the last touch of the game, but ended up 2-2 there in the end. We're just heading into the 90th minute in Valencia. Still Valencia 0, Real Madrid 1. That Carreras goal giving them the lead. Interestingly, Trent Alexander-Arnold on for his first team action since the 3rd of December.
And the Valencia fans waving white handkerchiefs around the ground, obviously not best pleased. Let's move on then away from Paris Saint-Germain. You know, not a predictable 5-0 win over Marseille. No 5-0 win is predictable. But I want to talk about Lyon, Andy. Beloved to you, and just on the most tremendous tear. 12 successive games their victory at Nantes brings. Although the unbelievable start that superstar Endrick has made on loan from Real Madrid has itself come to an end. But what a run for Lyon.
Yeah, it's an incredible run. And I think the interesting thing is that Endrick wasn't the guy who won them the game here. It was Pavel Schulz, the Czech, who really seemed at the start of the season as if he was a symbol of their reduced means, that they weren't really able to get anyone. And talking of number 10s, Kylian Mbappe has made it 2-0 to Real Madrid. All over. Brahim Diaz with the assist. Long ball picked up by Brahim on the left-hand side. across to the edge of the 6-yard area, tap in for Mbappe. Real Madrid home and hosed, 1 point gap at the top. But let's take you back to Pavel Schultz, who came across from Victoria Pilsen, 25 years old, but no one thought, okay, here's a top level player to enhance the team. They thought this is the level that Lyon is shopping at now. Now, he scored the winner yesterday at Nantes. That's his 10th in Ligue 1. If you add what he's done in the Coupe de France and the Europa League as well, he's heading up towards 15 goals now, 6 assists as well. It's an incredible effort, really, especially as someone who's quite small and quite slight. He's only 177 centimetres tall, and he's not bulky. So he's not the kind of guy who you look at and think, yeah, this guy's ready for French football. So how he's managed to thrive in the last little while is very impressive. And he's one of those who's really benefited from playing with Endrick. Now, I guess, though, very little has been said about this brilliant run of Lyon's, about the fact that they're in third place now, especially with that Marseille loss. They're on points in third now. It's the fact that Endrick has clearly been targeted. Now, to you and I, that seems normal, doesn't it, Danny?
Yes.
He's 19. He plays for Real Madrid. He's signed on loan for Lyon, and he's started spectacularly well. He's clearly, if not the best player in the division that's not at PSG, very, very close to being that. He's made an enormous difference. Now, he had the odd chance yesterday, but Paulo Fonseca complained afterwards that he was not looked after by the referee, and French referees have to do more to protect players like that. And in fact, the second booking that he got sent off for, that was VAR'd and then changed to a straight red card, although in practice that won't make any difference suspension-wise. He'll be suspended for 1 game. It came after a foul that wasn't given on Endrick, and then as he was trying to get the ball back, he fouled the Nantes player in question, and then it went to the screens. But I think the interesting thing is that the French media backed Fonseca, and they said, well, how are we going to get great players coming across here? Now, we've talked before about how there's this complete pedestalisation in France of the superstar individual, whatever the effect on the league or the competition. And we're seeing it again here, actually. The fact that rather than saying, well, what is the dynamic with Endrick? There's this complete move to protect him from the media of, you know, this guy needs to be looked after, otherwise other star players won't come here, which I find very interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, look, whatever about the running power of the Premier League, the French league is still an incredibly tough league to play in. Big, physical players putting themselves about. It is going to be. It wouldn't be my first choice if I was a Tanner Ball player, as they used to say in Scotland. It wouldn't be my first choice. Speaking of players with a very specific skill sets, we've seen the return of Alanson Maximin and a fine goal by him as well.
Yeah, what a wonderful return. Of course, it was a sad story about him leaving Club America in Mexico. Signed there for a couple of years, left after barely 6 months. He said the straw that broke the camel's back was his young children receiving racist abuse on social media, which is just appalling,
Scandalous.
of course. So off he went to Lens, and it really is a typical Lens signing for this season. You know, not one of the biggest budgets in the league, but of course they've done very well picking up players superstar players who've been, well, maybe not superstar players, very, very good players who've run aground elsewhere, like Florian Thauvin, World Cup winner, who's been pivotal for them this season, Odson Edouard, who hit a brick wall really in the Premier League, and now Saint-Maximin. And they were 2-1 up, having gone a goal down early on against Rennes. And Pierre Sage, the coach, said to him, go on and score the third goal for me. So Saint-Maximin, of course, with Gucci headband in tow, took him at his word, picked the ball up, smashed one in from absolutely miles out, and yes, he did do the somersault. Brilliant to see.
Very good indeed. And so I guess that takes us then, we should make the point that Lens were, until Paris played tonight, Paris Saint-Germain, they were briefly top off the back of that. Why don't you tell us about your star of the week in France, Andy?
Well, he didn't get the debut goal that he might have, but it's going to be Ciro Immobile, who, of course, has signed for Paris FC, a first experience in France at 35 years of age. And you're thinking, OK, he can't cut it in Serie A anymore. So he's moved across from Bologna and just doing a last little lap at PSG. He's been really living the life. He's already been out for dinner with Verratti, really enjoying the city, fancies himself scoring a couple of goals in Ligue 1. Didn't get one at Auxerre today, but I think there could be one or two in the pipeline.
I think it's maybe a first for me on the programme, because my star of the week is a sporting director. And we'll talk to Ben Jacobs in the second hour of tonight's edition of Trans Europe Express about the transfer window that's just closed on Friday in Saudi Arabia. But Thiago Escuro is the sporting director of Monaco. Been under a lot of pressure. Not all of his deals in the recent past have done very, very well. And they were also involved in a 0-0 draw, very boring game at Nice this weekend. But he's had a good week on the transfer front, including selling the Nigerian forward, George, I've got to get this correct now, Ilenikana, selling George Ilenikana to Saudi Arabia for, and you've never heard of him, admit it, not you, Andy, but the listeners, 33 million euros. So congratulations to Mr. Scuro for getting that one over the line.
Danny, he couldn't get in their team. He couldn't get in their really bad team.
It's extraordinary. 33 million of your European euros, everyone. And I say Ben Jacobs will join us in about 15 minutes' time to talk, A, about Cristiano Ronaldo being on strike in Saudi Arabia, and B, some of those deals also involving very young players that the Saudi League has done since the European transfer window closed. In the meanwhile, you're listening to me, Danny Kelly, and the return, welcomed with open arms, bells rung in the high places of the land, of Andy Brassell to Trans Europe Express.
And he was talking about style of play rather than trophies. It's great to win trophies looking good, but I don't think Liverpool fans will put up with not winning any trophies, or it'll be hard for them. You've got to win something.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. And you know, with the money that they've spent as well, I mean, you've always got that thing which is you've got to win something. You rightly say. I think that with them is that, you know, good result against Newcastle. Yeah, take it all day long. But as I say, we're still looking at, you know, what's it going to be at the weekend. Whereas, as we know with last year, it was like win, win, win all the time. And the thing about it as well, they've had lots of injuries, Liverpool. But listen, you know, it happens to everybody, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Matt, where do you sit with Arne Slot? Obviously, doing really well in the Champions League. Looking to have maybe picked up a bit of form again. Where do you sit on it all?
He's one of those who's I think you know when you see his press conferences and you look at him, I think he talks a bit too much, which probably sounds ridiculous, but it's one. If you have to consider with the previous manager, who was obviously absolutely brilliant, and it's difficult in times to kind of follow him. But we won the league last year, and it's always difficult the next year to win the league again. And he's had that, but he's had lots of injuries. I just feel if you ask the majority of Liverpool supporters, they'll tell you that is when he changes it, it doesn't exactly make it any better at the moment. So.
To succeed, people often say you need to think outside the box. In sports, every now and then someone does just that and comes up with a crazy idea for an exhibition event that nobody else could have dreamt up. Here are some of the most iconic we've ever seen. I mean, what an image. This was the setting for the Battle of the Surfaces in 2007 between Roger Federer and Rafa Nadal. The courts in Nadal's home of Mallorca reportedly took 19 days to build and cost £1.2 million. The players had to change their shoes every time they changed ends, and despite some dodgy bits of grass, they slugged out an epic three-setter, won by Nadal. But that's not even the most famous exhibition in tennis, because in 1973, we got the Battle of the Sexes, watched by 50 million people in the US alone. Billie Jean King's victory over Bobby Riggs was not only a landmark event for entertainment value, but also for its impact on the fight for gender equality in sports. I mean, the Battle of the Surfaces never got turned into a movie. Now, imagine a motor race that involved American Indy cars and European F1 cars. Well, that happened twice, back in 1957 and 58. The race of the two worlds took place at Monza and was nicknamed Monzanapolis. Despite legends like Sterling Moss, Phil Hill and Mike Hawthorne racing the F1 cars, the Americans won both years. Fans and the teams loved it, but it didn't make enough money, so got canned. For its cast list alone, though, the greatest exhibition might have to go to the Princess Diana Memorial match at Lord's. Mike Atherton captained a Marylebone Cricket Club side, with Sachin Tendulkar leading a rest of the world 11. Names like Wasim Akram, Sourav Ganguly, Andy Flower and Neil Kumble and Glenn McGrath turned out. The one-dayer, won by the rest of the world by 6 wickets, raised more than £1 million for the Princess of Wales Memorial Fund. Incredible all round.
Yeah, welcome back everybody to the second hour of today's edition, truncated edition of Trans Europe Express. This is the final hour, and therefore I will not go on too much at the top of the hour here, just to say that it's me, Danny Kelly, and Andy Brassell. Welcome back after a month away, doing various things that were all, no doubt, hugely important and no doubt richly remunerative. But it's great to have the great man back with us. And we'll also be hearing from Tim Vickery, Ben Jacobs, and plenty others between now and 11 o'clock. We'll hand over live to Santa Clara in California for the build-up to and full commentary of tonight's Super Bowl 60, the New England Patriots against the Seattle Seahawks. Welcome on, welcome all to Trans Europe Express. Now, typically, when we're under a bit of pressure for time, Tim Vickery sends us across the stories from South America. There are tons of them, and they're all really brilliant. Good evening, Tim.
Good evening. Quick line. Cristiano Ronaldo cannot go on strike. My grandson goes back to school after the long summer holidays this week in his new Cristiano Ronaldo school bag. We cannot have a strike at this point. There's too much at stake.
There is. Have you phoned Cristiano to tell him this, Tim? Because
Not
clearly
yet.
this is the
Not
this is
yet.
the straw that would break the camel's back.
Indeed. The education of my grandson is at stake here. Please, sort it out.
Listen, all these stories you've sent us across are very appealing to me in different ways. Let's start with James Rodriguez then. Still very much central to Colombia's hopes in the upcoming World Cup, but now he's actually finally got a club for himself.
He has, yeah. There are 18 weeks to go to the World Cup, and find yourself another fool, perhaps. The latest one, Minnesota United in Major League Soccer in the United States. It is, ladies and gentlemen, his 12th country. He has played in 12. Yes, 12. Yeah. It's extraordinary. Do you want a list? Colombia,
Yeah.
Argentina, Portugal, France, Spain, Germany, England, Saudi Arabia, Greece, Brazil, Spain again, very briefly, the only repetition, Mexico, and the United States. That's 12
Nomadic,
different countries.
peripatetic, globe-trotting. Amazing.
Frustrating, because he's given people in recent times 2 moments of joy. One when the club signs him, and one when they manage to get rid of him. But he's still an absolutely class act, and he's vital for Colombia. Let him do what he wants to do, only what he wants to do, and all of what he wants to do, and you've got a player there. And Colombia have managed to build their team around him. And the Colombian team, it is worryingly dependent on that link-up between James Rodriguez and Luis Diaz, and no doubt about it. Now he's fixed himself up with a club. He is booked in for bed and breakfast to be Colombia's main man in the World Cup.
You know what, Tim? Never mind Minnesota United. The Timberwolves could do with him at the moment. They're getting absolutely flamed at home by the LA Clippers. Of course, all the NBA games, even the ones in the West, are happening early because of the Super Bowl.
I have absolutely no idea and even less interest in what you were talking about.
I tell you what, he might work out as a shooting guard. Who knows? Give it a go, James. But talking of guys we can imagine making it in the States, the latest twist of Neymar, he's unfollowed the Brazilian FA.
He has, yes. Tales of the 21st century. He had a birthday in midweek. He was 34 on Thursday. He's still not playing. He was expected to come back Wednesday night. He didn't. They thought he might play today. He isn't. The next game, Santos, is on a synthetic pitch in midweek, and he doesn't like them, and he might see that as an injury risk, in which case nothing until next weekend. 17 weeks to go, meaning about 14 to get into the World Cup squad. The clock is ticking, and it seems that relations between Neymar and Brazil's FA are not good, because they didn't mark his birthday. The Brazilian FA did nothing to mark the birthday of the all-time top scorer of the Brazilian national team, and Neymar took this in mature and philosophical fashion by stopping following them. There you go.
This is birthday cake gate all over again, isn't it?
It is.
Tim, one of the few teams in the world in South America who haven't qualified yet for the World Cup is Bolivia. They have to play through an extra qualification round. You'll remind me who they're playing in a second. And for these critical games, they've got a new old centre forward.
Well, perhaps, yes. That they face in March in Mexico. They face Suriname. Get through that. They've got Iraq. Now they've got a problem, which is lack of goals. They really have been trawling around. I mean, the friendlies that they played late last month, they called up a recently naturalised veteran Paraguayan who's been trawling around minor clubs in Bolivia. The lack of a goal scorer is, I think they scored 1 in the last 6 or something like that. So bring back the all-time top goal scorer, Marcelo Martins Moreno. Another James Rodriguez figure. He's played all over the world. He is 38. He's going to be 39 in June. He hasn't played for a couple of years, and he retired from international football in 23. Now, he has just fixed himself up with a club in Bolivia, Oriente Petrolero. He will be playing, I think, for free. And the idea is to get out there, prove you can do something, and there's a chance that he'll be called up for Bolivia for these playoffs in March. It's a big ask. March is next month. He's been retired for a couple of years, but cometh the hour, cometh MMM.
Did I mishear you there? Did you say that their qualifying game is in Mexico?
Yes. Yes, that little competition that FIFA is doing, the Intercontinental playoffs, are taking place in Mexico.
Okay,
yes.
got it. Which is actually, given that the teams have got to play 2 games, and it might be going around the world 4 times, it's actually not the worst idea they've ever had, which is saying something, isn't it? Talk to me about Lionel Messi. He's done very well in the United States, and people revere him, and he's God, and all the rest of it. But imagine if he went back to Argentina. Although, of course, he's been gone from Argentina since he was an early teenager. According to you, Tim, Newell's Old Boys are trying to organise exactly that.
Yes, that's where he started. And he's always said, right from the start, when Spain tried to get him, he said, I am from Argentina, I am from the city of Rosario, and I am a leper. What did he mean by that? He's a fan and a former player of Newell's Old Boys. They're great rivals, Angel Di Maria's Rosario Central. Right back in the day, there was an attempt to get a friendly played, funds going to the local hospital for victims of leprosy, where the young Ernesto Guevara, on his way to being Shea, once worked. And Rosario Central declined to play in this fixture, and Newell's Old Boys said, yeah, we'll do it. Ever since, Central have been the scoundrels and Newell's have been the lepers. It's often been floated by Messi as an idea. Round off your career there. And over the last few days, the president of Newell's Old Boys, splendid name, formed by the teacher Isaac Newell, the president has been saying, we're working. We want to get him back for a few months just to round things off in 2027. The stone, I think, in the shoe, and it might happen, but the thing I can't see is as any kind of long-term thing. Because I think the city of Rosario, it will be wrong for his family. He will be putting his kids in a goldfish bowl. There's nowhere to hide. But maybe just for a few games as a kind of sentimental thing, perhaps. Messi, now he's spent time in at least partly an English-speaking culture. He might also be put off by the club's initials. I don't know if that one's got through to him yet, which are so proudly brandished on the touchline by the fans who aren't perhaps so acquainted with the English language. So file this one over under romantic dream that could happen, but isn't a sure thing.
Tim, having had a few weeks off, I feel obliged to ask you for a John Textor in Brazil update. Having been chased out of Lyon, of course, and told by his creditors that he's definitely not coming back, he's hit something of a wall at Botafogo. Has this changed the way that the fans feel about him, or is he going to be able to live off the Copa Libertadores forever?
Oh yes, yeah. I was in the stadium for their first game in the Brazilian Championship about 10 days ago, and there were big demonstrations against him. Yeah, right. I mean, so yes, there are still some. You do still see people going to the stadium with shirts with John Textor written on the back. But I think people have seen through that. They've seen, and the fans, and even those who are very, very anti of him, are still very grateful for the moments that he gave them, with winning the Libertadores and so on. But no, I think... and it's a much more modest club now. I mean, they're a very interesting club to watch. They've been insanely attacking. They lost the last game 5-3 after winning the first one 4-0. So they're a great club to watch. But the strength of the squad, Danilo, the former Forest midfielder, is doing exceptionally well. Really, really well for them. They nearly had to get rid of him, though, with all the transfer ban stuff and the money that they owe to a club in the United States. So he's still trying to hang on there at Botafogo. But he is not the Messiah that he seemed 2 or 3 years ago.
And finally, Tim, again, for Andy's benefit, because he's been away for a few weeks, obviously South American football moves at such a pace, which is why I love it so much. So coaches who, when Andy left, were just being unveiled as new messiahs, already under pressure.
Well, this has even happened to the Flamengo coach, Felipe Luis.
Oh.
Who, he's only the champion of Brazil and South America. They only took Paris Saint-Germain to a penalty shootout in the final of the Intercontinental in the middle of December. Obviously, they have to rush back, hardly any pre-season training, and get out there. with Lucas Paquetá, the most expensive signing by far in the history of Brazilian football. So victory is assured. Oh, no, it isn't. They lost 3 on a row and then drew the next one. I was in the stadium for that one, and lots of boos. And the club had to issue a statement when, the club had to say, no, we are not thinking of sacking him. But you could feel the mood. And Brazilian fans are just so volatile. One who is under more pressure is his predecessor as Flamengo coach and the former Brazil coach, Chichi, who took a year off, more than a year off football, mental health, came back this year to Cruzeiro, and it really hasn't gone well. They've only had 2 league games, but they've lost them both. And some of the newspapers there are openly calling for him to be sacked already. Another one who's under pressure, although I don't think it's quite that bad yet, maybe it should be, is River Plate in Argentina. Marcelo Gallardo, who had a long first spell with the club, went away, did Saudi, didn't really work, came back. His second spell has been awful. Really, and River Plate, they have the biggest stadium in South America. They played the Club World Cup last year, which gives them money beyond the wildest dreams of other teams in Argentina. They couldn't even qualify for the Libertadores this year. Haven't made a bad start until yesterday, until last night. 4th round of the Argentine Championship. They got done 4-1 at home by Little Tigre, a tiny little club from the north of Buenos Aires. And boy, were they hammered. I mean, the one that they got was a consolation in the last minute. They were 4-0 down, and it could have been more. And they were appalling. So you saw some of the signs if you followed them in the Club World Cup, and he loves getting his fullbacks forward. Absolutely loves getting both fullbacks forward at the same time. In the Club World Cup, that they picked up so many cards in the midfield because the midfielders just had so much space to cover, and it was the same story. They just got picked off and mercilessly picked off on the break by Tigre. So the second coming of Gallardo, I don't think he's in imminent danger. But that 4-1, with lots of fans streaming away before the end, with lots of others singing like mad all the way to the end. Argentine fans really are special. They're much slower to turn against their own team than the Brazilians are. But that's a storm cloud on the horizon for him, because that was a result and a performance, given the economic strength of the two teams, that was not acceptable.
Tim, listen, thank you very much for all of that. All fantastically fascinating and a lot of it great fun. And particular detail about your grandson not being able to go to school with his new Cristiano Ronaldo school bag if Cristiano is pupping up, as we say in this part of the world. Thank you as always, Tim. Bless you, man.
Speak to you next week. Look forward to it.
Yeah, you will. Cheers. Tim Vickery there from South America. Next up, we'll be talking to Ben Jacobs about everything that's been going on in Saudi Arabia, including that strike that threatens to upset the education of Tim Vickery's grandson.
I mean, arguably, Crook, it could have been a lot worse than this, couldn't it? We thought it might be. This was an additional charge. There was an additional charge for a failing of an obligation to provide full, complete and prompt assistance to the Premier League. Let's be clear. They tried to use a loophole to stop getting an earlier points deduction when they were in the Premier League. Leicester said it was disproportionate, but did they get off lightly?
Yes. And I think Leicester as a football club have been punished for trying to wriggle out of things by trying to use, as Simon Jordan described, the sort of black hole where they were neither a Championship or a Premier League club in order to dodge the charges. They've caught up with them in the end. I know the Premier League were pushing for as many as 20 points to be taken off Leicester, which pretty much would have resign them, I think, to League One football next
Will they
season.
appeal the Premier League that this isn't harsh enough, the punishment?
Well, that's an interesting question because I don't think Leicester will appeal, and maybe risk a further point deduction. I think they should feel they got off lightly. But just looking at their statement, and a lot of Leicester fans have picked up on this, it probably tells you where they're at as a football club. There was no real contrition from Leicester. They're still trying to play the victim for the fact they breached PSR rules to the tune of nearly £21 million. They've brought a lot of this on themselves. They've made bad decision after bad decision. They've hired and fired managers with too much regularity. They've sold players but replaced them with players who aren't up to standard. And that's why we're now in a situation whereby on the 10-year anniversary of Leicester winning the Premier League, defying those odds of 5,000 to 1, 10 years to that very day is the last day of the Championship season. They could find themselves in the third tier.
But hold on a second here. This all unravelled when Brendan Rodgers was in charge, and maybe before it unravelled. It has to be remembered that Leicester City were consistently disrupting the established elite 2 seasons running.
Yeah, the latest episode of How to Win the World Cup is now live. Matt Ford and Alex Brooker are joined by the former England captain and talkSPORT's very own Stuart Pearce to talk about what it takes, what makes a perfect leader in football. That's the new How to Win the World Cup podcast, available now on the talkSPORT app or on your favourite podcast providers. Great listen, by the way. Okay, so we've talked about South America. What about Saudi Arabia? The big news this week that Cristiano Ronaldo was on strike. To get a latest on that and talk about the Saudi transfer window, which closed on Friday. I'm delighted to say we're joined by our Saudi expert here on Trans Europe Express, Ben Jacobs. Good evening, Ben.
Good evening, guys.
Listen, thanks for joining us. I find that the reporting of the stuff that Cristiano Ronaldo does is always very odd in this country, in Britain and Ireland, because they just can't get away from the glare of his celebrity. And so we get half bits and pieces of facts, but mostly it's about how huge he is, how much he earns, and all the rest of it. So what's actually been going on with Cristiano in the last week?
Yeah, and there'll be a rewriting of history as well, because if it all resolves itself, Ronaldo has intentionally not spoken, so he can deny a lot of what's out there. But essentially, what has happened is Cristiano Ronaldo is questioning the very strategy of the Saudi Pro League, and in particular how the funds are distributed. And what he can't get his head around is how Karim Benzema cannot agree an extension at his former club Al Ittihad and view the offer on the table as insulting, and yet then go and sign a new deal with Al Hilal when both of those clubs are ultimately owned and controlled by PIF. Ronaldo's perspective, therefore, is that Al Hilal, in signing Benzema, got extra money, and his point is not that he's against Karim Benzema joining a rival club. It's more down to the fact that the budget is supposed to be transparent and allocated centrally at the beginning of the season. And his feeling is that Al Hilal have been given an extra injection of cash, whilst at the same time Al Nassr have had no finances or freedom to move in the market. And the irony is Ronaldo's on an incredible wage, and all of the Saudi Pro League project appears lucrative, but if you take the central funding away, not many of the clubs are actually sustainable and can go ahead and make their own signings. Now, Al Hilal argue that they use private investment to finance the deal, so not PIF money, and that's why the league has come out with a statement saying that each of the clubs make their own decisions and that Ronaldo has no right to question the business of other clubs. And whilst there is no resolution, Ronaldo has decided to go on strike, and we'll wait and see how long that continues.
But it's so interesting, isn't it, Ben? Because clearly a huge part of this is the fact that he wants to win something, and he hasn't won anything collectively since he's been there, which is obviously bugging him to quite a large degree. But really, it's the Kobe Bryant thing, isn't it? If we're talking about following in the steps of sporting greatness, in that Kobe Bryant would never take a pay cut at the Lakers while they didn't have the money to go out there and refresh their team in the last couple of years of his career.
Yeah, I think Cristiano Ronaldo is not going to give his own money to Al Nassr, although an interesting subplot here is that in the long run, none of these clubs are going to be owned by PIF. So from day one, when they took over, people spoke about Newcastle United and maybe some kind of link up, but PIF were viewed as a medium-term owner that, as the Saudi League becomes fully privatised, would ultimately bail out. And Al Hilal is actually in the process of being sold, and the other 3 clubs, including Al Nassr, will follow. So one day the hope is within Saudi Arabia that Ronaldo might retire and even own and buy a part or all of Al Nassr. But in the meantime, as you say, he wants to win things, but he's not going to take a pay cut or invest money into the club. And it's unclear legally, even if he chose to forego some of his incredible wage, if it would actually benefit Al Nassr, because there may be an argument that that goes back into the central funding and is redistributed as effectively the Saudi Ministry of Sport and the league see fit. So it's a complicated structure. And the other thing in all of this is that Ronaldo, in signing, made it clear what he wanted, and he hasn't got that in the market. He was the driving force behind Jorge Jesus being hired as manager. In addition to that, both the CEO and the sporting director at the club were Ronaldo decisions, and he feels that everyone is being hampered in the market. And as you say, he's barely won anything. The only trophy he's got at Al Nassr is the Arab Club Champions Cup in 2023, and now he's looking to do 2 things: win more silverware and get to 1,000 goals for club and country. And of course Saudi would love him to reach the latter milestone whilst there, because if he leaves and gets the glory of 1,000 career goals elsewhere, that would be a bad look for Saudi. And the fear right now is if Ronaldo goes, could this whole league-wide strategy come crumbling down? Because that would send a message to several other top players all over the world who might choose Saudi after the World Cup, that actually this project is not what it seems. So it's a critical period for Saudi deal makers to stick to their strategy and not cave to Cristiano Ronaldo, and yet at the same time make sure that Cristiano Ronaldo stays in Saudi Arabia.
I mean, I want to talk about transfers, but just to finish this off, is he actually on strike? Is he saying, I'm not going to train, I'm not going to play?
He's training, and I actually think he will play in the next game, because it's not a Saudi Pro League fixture. It's the round of 16 in the AFC Cup against Arkadagh of Turkmenistan. But that doesn't mean that against Al Fatah the following Saturday, he won't go back to being on strike. So he's training as normal, and Al Nassr sources insist it's a day-to-day situation, and they're fully supportive of Cristiano Ronaldo. League officials, meanwhile, are trying to resolve this and get him back playing games as quickly as possible.
Meanwhile, Ben, a sort of 4 or 5 days after the transfer window closed, say in Europe, it's closed in Saudi Arabia. Andy kind of startled me in the build-up to the show by pointing out that Monaco had managed to sell one of their reserves to a Saudi club. George, help me, Andy, here.
Elena Kenner.
Thank you very much indeed. For 33 million euros. My old eyebrows went to Spacewood. Tell us about any other notable transfers in Saudi Arabia during the recent transfer window?
Yeah, I think we've seen a few, but also some players leaving as well, which again is significant because it suggests that not everyone is sticking around. The biggest story of a departure was N'Golo Kante. Very unusual to speak of Kante agitating, but he didn't want to train, and then eventually ended up joining Fenerbahce. So that was a pretty big story. Karim Benzema, as I mentioned before, going to Al Hilal from Al Ittihad, another really interesting case. Youssef En-Nesyri leaving Fenerbahce to move to Al Ittihad. That was another big one from the window as well. And by the way, we've got question marks over a few other players. For example, Darwin Núñez is looking at Marcus Leonardo and now Karim Benzema in the Al Hilal team, and their foreign quota is full. So he must be wondering what kind of game time he's going to get in the coming weeks as well. So it wasn't the busiest of windows in terms of volume, and I think that's because it's mid-season, it's a World Cup year, and as we've reported exclusively on talkSPORT, after the World Cup, there's going to be Wave 2, this big drive to get a number of foreigners, because many of the players that joined in 2023 are coming to the end of their contracts or are just older and clubs want to refresh. So summer's going to be really big for Saudi. January was quiet in terms of volume, but because of the Ronaldo, Benzema, Kante, all kind of being a bit intertwined. A lot of unhappy players at Al Ittihad, Kante going, Benzema moving to Al Hilal, staying in Saudi, but Ronaldo kind of getting involved in it somehow. It's all led to the politics of the window being actually more interesting and important and critical than the signings themselves.
Yeah, well, we know you'll keep us abreast of it, Ben, but this threat, well, it's not a threat, isn't it? This fact that they're going to have another big splurge in the summer, very, very interesting. The effect it will have on clubs all over the rest of the world, including, of course, the clubs that we follow here on Trans-Europe Express. Where we are now heading very quickly to our talkSPORT's coverage of the Super Bowl. Before that, we will also try and bring you everything that's been happening in Spain and around some other leagues as well. And don't forget, full commentary of the game from Santa Clara between the Patriots and Seahawks coming up here on talkSPORT.
You can believe what? Why is it so hard to believe a black man in a white man? Understand me? Why is it so hard to believe a black man in a white man?
Why you don't believe it?
Why is it?
Let me answer the question.
Yeah,
go on.
So we can go there.
First and foremost, it's got nothing to do with colour.
No, it does. This whole country got some. This whole world got something to do with race. You think you got? You think you pan out? You think you have a? You think you had a great life? You think your life has been like mine?
How is Derek Chisora then, out of curiosity, given he's a black man, a national treasure in this country then? It's not about colour. You called somebody a chick. I asked you a question.
Oh, come on. You have a whole lot of black people around this
the question.
Thank you.
Stop, bro. The question. All right, I moved on.
Stop it.
I moved on.
Man, come on, man. Y'all can't tell, man.
So the bronze bomber, there he is.
Yeah, so come on, man.
Come on. We can have a disagreement, can't we?
Your life, as a little boy and I bet your view as a little boy is totally different than my view as a little boy. Most black people, why we so into it with each other, because we have PTSD. We done been through so much so much
you wanted to move on, right?
Come on, man. It's hard to move on when you don't know the truth, and that's when I come in and try to give you a vision, a little insight of what we go through as black people, man.
I got it.
You know, you don't get it.
Well, okay.
None of y'all get it.
Where do you want me to go?
Y'all don't get it. And that's the problem. You think you get what you don't understand.
Okay.
Why is it so hard?
Pull it back into the fight. Let's talk about the fight.
It's hard to put it back. I'm from the South. You understand?
Come on, let's pull it back into the fight.
It's hard when y'all don't understand. I get it. Another situation. I said I didn't want to talk about the situation. Now you got me riled up.
Fair enough.
Wilder's back. You understand? I feel. You understand me? You don't mean that, man.
Okay, stop
shouting at me. Let me get the out of here, bro. I'm out of here. I'm out of here. Talking about my peoples and all that. It's hard to believe a black man in a white man. Cheated. Tell him to sue me so I can show the facts early. Because when the documentary and everything, the story come out, I'm going to show everything.
Fantastic.
I'm going to get all the people that know and all the people that's in the inside. He got people that the inside of him. That know. I don't, what? I don't about that.
I'm not a Fury fan.
I don't about it. I said we didn't want to bring him up in the first place. It ain't got to do with him.
Fair enough.
The you talking about?
Yeah, let's. We've got quite a bit to get through, and not much time to do it because we'll be going over a little bit earlier than usual. About 10 to 11 to talk. To get the build up, the full build up to the Super Bowl. So Andy, let's get stuck straight into Spain with the headline that Betis get their own back. Before that, we should note we've already covered the Real Madrid against Valencia game tonight in some detail. That victory for Real Madrid leaves them 1 point behind Barcelona, who had I suppose a comfortable win over Mallorca by 3-0.
Comfortable in the end, Danny. It wasn't at the beginning, and Mallorca have been improved of late. They created a couple of chances at the beginning, and they had a few at the end as well. Now, funnily enough, in a week or a week and a half where we've been talking about Marc-Andre ter Stegen, are his World Cup's hopes over? Of course, he was loaned out to Girona, and in his second game got injured. He's expected to be out for a number of weeks. So whether it is realistic for him to make it back, I don't know. But of course, him being sort of demoted some more was something that was a really big deal at Barcelona, politically as much as anything else. He was over there for more than a decade, a long-serving person who was a real figure of substance in the Barcelona dressing room. But after yesterday, after it was 2-0 to Barcelona by a brilliant second goal by Lamine Yamal from distance, it was interesting because Joan Garcia made a brilliant save, actually, at 2-0. So it's a comfortable win, at least partly because Joan Garcia made it that. And I think he's been so good this season, it's easy to overlook what an influential figure he has become for Barcelona. And in fact, Marc-Andre ter Stegen and him having a Barcelona future, not just because the club want to get rid of his massive wages, but in a sporting sense, it just doesn't make any sense to talk about him as a Barcelona goalkeeper anymore, despite the fact he's still on contract.
Yeah, I mean, a shame if he does miss the World Cup because he's such a brilliant goalkeeper over the past half a dozen years. I really want to talk about Atletico Madrid, Andy, and perhaps indicative of the kind of season they're having. In the course of a few days, they've done very well and averagely against the same team.
Yeah, they have. So in the Copa del Rey, they went to Betis and won their 5-0 on Thursday night. You might have seen it. It was on British terrestrial TV. They were brilliant. They were really, really good. Ademola Lookman, who was one of their 3 deadline day signings, had an absolutely fantastic debut. Couldn't have gone any better for him. And then they play the same opposition in La Liga, start very brightly, very attacking team put out by Diego Simeone. Antony, of course, with a swish of that left foot, scores against the run of play. And despite using 3 subs at half-time, a couple more late on, and remember, Antoine Griezmann is now the most prolific substitute in Europe's top leagues. He's scored 7 off the bench, even more than Gonzalo Ramos this season. Can't make any difference. They have a bit of bad luck because you have a goal disallowed by Ademola Lookman for offside, an own goal by Diego Llorente, formerly of Leeds, disallowed for an offside against Griezmann as well, maybe slightly more controversially, and they slipped to a 1-0 defeat. So normally we read through the table in Serie A, but I'm going to have to do it here with that Real Madrid win tonight in La Liga, because 23 games in, this is the top 3. Barcelona, of course, 58 points. Real Madrid, 57. Atletico Madrid, 45.
Yeah.
They could not be further off. Now, normally, it would seem absurd to talk about Diego Simeone being under pressure, but new owners, big money spent, and, of course, you sign the likes of Lookman, who's not a player for the future. He's 28 years old. He's brilliant, of course, just recently African Footballer of the Year, but he's a win-now sort of player. So that tells you where the heads of the board are, I think.
I mean, the trouble here is, as you say, new owners always opened up new vistas, but it's very hard for our peanut-sized brains, Andy, to get around the idea that Diego Simeone is anything other than permanent and eternal at Atletico Madrid, which let's say that he is. That still leaves the question, what is the direction for Atletico Madrid. And, they can't have a whole 3-4 months now where there's nothing in their season. This is just not the Atletico of the past decade.
No, so they're in the semi-finals of the Copa del Rey, of course.
Sure.
They're still in the Champions League with that playoff game for the last 16 against Club Brugge, who are no pushovers. Let's underline that, and Barcelona can tell them that after the going over that they got in northern Belgium. So, look, those two games are absolutely huge for them. And I wouldn't say huge for Simeone's future, because despite the fact everything's changed at the top, he's almost bought the right to decide when he's going to leave. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But it is a kind of Arsene Wenger situation. On one hand, you've got someone who almost guarantees you Champions League qualification, which for the sort of levels that the club is running at is absolutely vital. On the other hand, there's clearly a glass ceiling above them. And when you look at Barcelona, who've got a limited amount of money, and Real Madrid don't really know what they are at the moment, you can't help but feel that some sort of opportunity is passing Atletico by.
Yeah, very, very. The transition between being the best defensive side of the past 20 years into anything else is now into its kind of third year, Andy. It hasn't quite worked for them, and I understand why Simeone's doing it. I'm sure the new owners want to play attractive football and all the rest of it, but it hasn't. The players they've got in, and the way they play, it just hasn't quite yet gelled for them. But as you say, if he keeps finishing third and guaranteeing the riches of the Champions League, what a risk it would be for the Atletico owners to remove him from office.
Yeah, it would be. It would be.
Okay, well, look, let's do our stars of the week now in Spain. Mine is one of his, I say former players, but Thomas Lemar, completely forgotten man at Atletico Madrid, really. These days on loan. Don't forget, he's only 30 and he was a World Cup winner with France. But Thomas Lemar is on loan at Girona, and he had a blinder. He scored a blinding goal today at Seville. It was a draw because they were the victims of yet another late goal. But that was Thomas' first goal for a variety of reasons. Selection, being played as a wing-back by the aforementioned Simeone, and of course an absolute collection of injuries. First goal in La Liga for 3 years. So hats off to him. Who is your star of the week in Spain?
Well, Athletic have been a team that obviously a lot of people have interest in for their uniqueness in European and world football. They've had a difficult old season in their return to the Champions League. Ton of injuries. It's been disappointing for a number of reasons. But however, they did get a win today, 4-2 over Levante. Levante were down to 10 men for all but 15 minutes of the game, and there were a few bits at the end where they made it difficult for themselves, Athletic. But my star of the week, Gorka Guruzeta, two very different goals, late header into the box and a run onto an Iñaki Williams pass, which underlined it. If he'd have been there all season, maybe things would have been a little bit different.
Yeah, they need Gorka to be what they need up front, and they need both the Williams brothers and the team fit and raring to go. Listen, thank you for that. One more section to go before we hand you over to the Super Bowl. Let me just tell you that'll be Andy taking us around the leagues. We'll talk about Portugal, we'll talk about Turkey, and I'll bring you the latest from the first weekend of the return of football here in the Republic of Ireland.
Let's focus on Chelsea. Liam Rosenior back pages again. Rosenior hits out at Arsenal. Chelsea head coach accused the opponents of disrespect for disrupting his side's warm-up before the cup tie.
I wouldn't come out with that, me.
I guess he was asked about it. He was asked about
bat it away, use your brains, use your head. Say, oh, mate, what's your point? You saying that costs the game? Nah.
He got a bit excited, didn't he? Really, you saw if you've watched the video, I'd love to see how far onto their side of the pitch they were, because they didn't pan round, did they? They just showed him giving a bit to somebody. You didn't see who it was at. You didn't see how far they were into there. If they're right in their half and they're constantly doing it, then I get it. I understand it, but still, it's just calm it down.
Rosenior mentioned that it could be mind games, though. Do you believe that the Arsenal players were creeping into that half to get in their heads, or was it just a genuine?
They've done the job either way. They've got in their head either way.
Well, now he's talking about it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Arsenal were favourites to win that game for me. Why would you? Nah. Maybe you might say, look, you know the rules, stay in your own half. But nah, I don't. I think we're looking at a big problem here that's not a problem.
Yeah, I don't think they need to resort to doing that, Arsenal.
Yeah, he said in the interview, I've never asked my team to approach on the opposition's territory. I didn't think it was right. Where they were operating, they were affecting my lads' warm-up. What's your thoughts on Rosenior? I'm
still a little bit waiting for it, to be honest with you. The results are ultimately going to be the thing that dictates whether he's a success or not. Some of the things he comes out and says, obviously the world that we live in now, social media, they're so quick to make memes up, honestly, Alan. I don't know if you're on Twitter, Instagram, any of this kind of stuff.
A little, but not really.
It's brutal, honestly. It's a brutal place to be at times. They are so quick at making these memes up, David Brent and all that. And that, I think, subconsciously seeps into people's minds and it makes their mind up for them. But yeah, I think, like I say, it's just going to be down to results. It is simple as that.
And you've got to be able to laugh that off as well. I mean, look.
Yes, just a few minutes left now before we throw you to our massive team of commentators there in Santa Clara for the Super Bowl between the Patriots and the Seahawks. Andy, just a few minutes for us to go around some of the leagues we haven't mentioned yet. Starting, as we heard from Ben Jacobs a few seconds ago, there was plenty of activity in the Turkish transfer window that closed a few days later than that in the rest of Europe.
Yeah, that's always been the plus, really, in recent years, hasn't it, for the Turkish Super League, Danny? The fact that it's a fallback. It's a fallback where you can make more money than anywhere but the Turkish Super League from the elite clubs, and you can play in European football. So it's sort of carved itself a niche. What I think was interesting is, as Ben was touching on before, the biggest headline transfer was the move of N'Golo Kante to Fenerbahce. Now, look, they didn't get the striker they wanted because, of course, they let John Duran go in the end. They let Yusuf En-Nesyri go. Duran going to Zenit St. Petersburg. And we were talking about, or Tim was talking about James Rodriguez playing for so many different clubs. Remarkable that he's gone to Russia after already having played in Turkey, China, MLS, England. Is quite, and of course Colombia is an incredible thing. Only 22 years old. Anyway, at the other end of the scale, you've got this deal for N'Golo Kante, which looked as if it was dead in the water on Monday, because of course that's when the Saudi window closed, and it looked like En-Nesyri wouldn't be able to go the other way because, as so often with Saudi Pro League deals, they didn't fill in the right forms. The deadline passed, except President Erdogan stepped in, which obviously Galatasaray weren't very happy about. But it kind of goes against the tide of the sort of Super League transfers that we've been talking about, where you get players in the prime of their career going to Turkey. Whereas this is not the case with N'Golo Kante. Of course, in a couple of weeks, he's going to be 35 years old. We've not seen him play for France in a couple of years. He got 14 million just for signing on, over 14 million euros tax-free, and he's getting 11 million a season for the next 2 seasons after this one.
Delicious money. Andy, I'll let you talk about the big game in Portugal tomorrow in just a second. When you've been away for a few weeks, Andy, lots of strange things have been going on behind your back, including me last week doing a long dissertation about how Larne are about to win their third title in 4 years in Northern Ireland. But back here in the southern part of the country, in the Republic, we've had the first round of fixtures for our new, of course, it's a summer league here in Ireland. Notable was the big derby in Dublin between Bohemians and St Patrick's Athletic. The game was moved from Bohemians Dalymount Park. They're going to be doing up Dalymount over the next couple of years, and this was a fundraiser to help with that. So it was moved to the Aviva, essentially the national stadium for soccer. And 22,000 people turned up, which is a lot of people for a league match in Ireland. Sadly, the final score was 0-0, and again, that wasn't, well, Bows dominated, but it was 0-0 in the end. They did something similar in the early 90s, and again, the game ended 0-0. It's perhaps that would have been at Lansdowne Road. Perhaps they should stop doing it if they want to see any entertaining football. Meanwhile, back in Portugal, huge game tomorrow.
Yeah, Porto versus Sporting, 1-2, made it all the more exciting by the fact that Porto lost their first game of the season last week at Casa Pia, so only a 4-point gap at the top, which of course Sporting can close to 1 if they go there and win. Jose Mourinho said openly in the pre-match press conference before Benfica against Alverca this weekend that he would be supporting Sporting for this one. Say what you mean, Jose. And a late winner from the 17-year-old Anicio Cabral gave Benfica a win, a narrow win in that game against Alverca this evening, which at least temporarily closes the gap at the top to 6 points. So Benfica hoping that they're back in it.
You know, Andy, because of our coverage of the Super Bowl, that is it for us for another week. Let me just say again how wonderful it is to have you back, and I'm sure everyone will agree that was a great show because you were at the controls, and that was just wonderful. Andy Brassell, everybody, huge round of applause. In our poll, where will Cristiano Ronaldo be playing his football after the World Cup? It was very close. A lot of you think the MLS, but just slightly ahead in the voting was the idea he might return to Sporting Lisbon. God knows how they could afford the great man, but that's what you all think. I'll be back on H&J at about 1:15 to go through all the big Premier League games. That's tomorrow here on talkSPORT, which just leads me to remind you that coming up next is live coverage of Super Bowl 60. It's the big game between the New England Patriots and the Seattle Seahawks in California. So why don't we hand over right now. Thank you all for listening. God bless you all. As we hand you over to our commentary team for the evening, Will Varney is your host, and your commentators will be Will Gavin, Ross Tucker, and Greg Rosenthal.
I think there's times as well, isn't there? You look at the problem at Sheffield Wednesday and how Barry Bannon's gone about it when he's been there and he's come out and spoke when members of staff aren't getting paid and stuff. There's times to come out, isn't there, and speak, but the problems that Spurs are having when they've got so many good players available still, just keep it in-house. You know, let Thomas Frank deal with that.
Yeah, for sure. Because Thomas Frank has obviously been asked about it. He was quite diplomatic in public. In private, would he have been fuming with his captain, you think?
I think so, yeah. I think he would have been fuming.
Does he do fuming?
He does sort of quiet fuming.
Scandinavian fuming.
Yeah, he doesn't shout and bawl, but he will drag you in there and have a word for sure. He's not.
Because you were with him for how long at Brentford? 3 years.
3 years.
How many times did he blow his top during that period?
Once or twice in the dressing room, but for sure, there were times he would drag players into the office and let them know. But in his way, he's not a shouter and baller. But in his way, he's more than willing to sort things.
Well, what do you think about him making the step up to being the Tottenham manager? Because it is a step up, isn't it? I mean, although you look at the table and Brentford are 7th and Tottenham are in the bottom half of the table, there's more scrutiny.
Yep.
There's a lot more noise around the place because it's a bigger football club. So how do you think he's going to handle that?
I think he's got all the tools to handle it well. I think he has handled it well. Obviously, the results haven't gone so well at the minute, but I think he, looking at the game on Sunday against City, the players are still working really hard for him. Second half, especially, you could see they're still running for him. You kind of look at that as signs of, they're still with him at the minute. Obviously, like you say, the club is a lot bigger than Brentford at this moment in time, and there's a lot more scrutiny on him, and he will be, tested with all those things. But he's a fantastic manager. I've got a lot of time for him. Really enjoyed my time with him, and I fully expected him to do well moving forward and stepping on. I think, like I say, results haven't gone to plan at the minute, but I think giving him a bit more time.
"32 teams kicked off the NFL season with a common goal, and it was simple: to win the Lombardi Trophy. For some, an expectation; for others, a mere fantasy. But today signals when dreams can become reality. And after a relentless 5 months, just 2 contenders remain. For the Seattle Seahawks and the New England Patriots, it's a date with destiny, as only one can rise to the very top to be crowned Super Bowl 60 champions.
Be violent, man! Be smart, but when in doubt, crash the out!
A lot of guys has been counted out. Nobody really believed in us.
I'm just glad I'm going to the Super Bowl. It don't matter about the opponent.
We always dreamed about it, being kids and stuff, playing on this level. It's just a one-of-a-kind feeling.
This is it. This is what we're here for.
Ain't nobody like us. Ain't nobody believe in us. I like us, man.
It's just nothing like I've ever experienced. Nothing but a dream come true.
Whatever it takes, for us to get the job done, I'm going to do.
Obviously, you dream of this as a kid, right? You dream of playing in the Super Bowl.
Go lay it on the line for your brother, man. Gang go 3, 1, 2, 3.
The most unlikely Super Bowl matchup in the last 50 years.
10-5, touchdown, Rashid Shaheed!
Seattle Seahawks, they have everything.
And a new era of Patriots football.
The worst nightmare has returned. Touchdown, Patriots! I tell you, that guy right there, Drake May.
Take it in for a split second, then turn it off and let's go play football.
We're going to the Super Bowl!
Every player who steps foot in the National Football League dreams of reaching this game. It's the moment they've worked their entire life for, a chance to be a Super Bowl champion. For those of Seattle and New England persuasion, they know they're just 4 quarters away. Welcome to the sport's biggest spectacle here in Santa Clara, California. I'm your host, Will Varney, coming to you from Levi's Stadium. What a gorgeous day it's been in the Bay Area. Bright blue sky, not a cloud to be seen. The sun beating down on this turf. We couldn't ask for much more, could we? We're situated in the left-hand corner of Levi's Stadium. On the second tier, we look out. The Patriots end zone is in front of us, as well as the Patriots tunnel. They'll enter the field in around about 15 minutes' time. At the far end, we've got the Seahawks end zone in that darker shade of blue, and it's felt like a Seahawks takeover, especially around San Francisco in the last couple of days. The 12, they've traveled in big numbers. We've had open-top buses filled with fans parading around Union Square. We've had planes flying with 12 flags tailing behind. But I'm sure those who've travelled from the Boston and New England area will make themselves heard tonight as they hope to see their team lift an historic 7th Lombardi Trophy. It's a pleasure to say on commentary duties tonight, we have a stellar lineup. In my opinion, it doesn't get much better. We have, of course, our very own viral play calling sensation, Mr. Will Gavin, with us, bringing you the excitement. And we have a talkSPORT debut in the booth tonight, calling his very first Super Bowl. You'll have heard him on Westwood One throughout this season. You'll have seen him on TV. It's great to say we have the former Patriots offensive lineman. And I'm going to throw it in for good measure, like I have done all week, Emmy-nominated broadcaster, Mr. Ross Tucker. Ross, how are you, my man?
I am fantastic. This is amazing. Unbelievable description by you, Will. I think it is fair. It feels like there's been more 12s out here than Patriots fans, but it's also been longer since they had a chance to play in the Super Bowl, and it's a much shorter flight.
It is. And look, we've also got an old hand with us. He was with us back in Dublin in September, in London in October,